Democrats finally acknowledge mail-in voter fraud and blame Republicans.
Mr. Reagan.
All right, so recently I've been getting a lot of spam email from Democrat operatives. Some of these are from congressmen, some of these are from senators, and some of these are from what we call PACs, political action committees, trying to raise money for a variety of senators or different politicians. And one of these PACs is called When Democrats Turn Out. And this is a particularly aggressive group. They email me just about every day. And the great thing about getting emailed by these guys is that I'm getting an insight, a peek behind the curtain, if you will, into what the professional political class is telling Democrat voters, things that they may not be saying on MSNBC or on CNN, things that maybe they don't want Republicans to hear, they just want the Democrat voters to hear. So you can get the most insidious political propaganda from the left by looking at some of these emails. I want to read you one of these in particular in one moment. First, of course, I have to sell you something.
After 20 years old, your body will naturally decrease its collagen production by 12% each passing decade. This is a reason why skin appears to be thinner and more wrinkled as we age. Ageless Multi-Collagen provides you with the 5 types of collagen that your body needs in one complete protein. You'll enjoy powerful support for your body with results that you can see and feel in just a few short weeks. Get Ageless Multi-Collagen for 51% off plus free shipping by going to healthwithreagan.com or by clicking on the link in the description below. Now, there is a 60-day money-back guarantee, and for every order, BioTrust actually donates a nutritious meal to a hungry child in your honor through their partnership with NoKidHungry.org. To date, BioTrust has provided over 4.2 million meals to hungry kids. Now, they've got a goal to donate 5 million meals this year, so let's help them get to that. BioTrust Collagen is non-GMO and free of artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, and sweeteners, and it's free of gluten, antibiotics, RBGH, and RBST. There is no taste or smell, unlike bone broth or other collagen supplements, and there's no clumping, unlike bone broth, and there's no clumping, unlike other collagen supplements. And there's free shipping with every order. And again, 60-day money-back guarantee, so nothing to lose. Click on the link in the description below, and I do take this stuff myself. This is not just me selling a product. I really do take this, and I really do recommend it.
So I checked out this political action committee, and they're legit. It doesn't seem like a scam. They're legitimately raising money for various politicians. The woman in charge seems like she knows what she's doing, but certainly straight up Democrat, hate Trump, blah, 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 blah. So this is the email that I wanted to read. So it starts out, Chris, Georgia's Republican Secretary of State revealed at least 1,000 people voted twice in the state's primary and runoff elections, less than a week after Trump encouraged his supporters in North Carolina to do the same. Now, this is, in fact, an insidious lie. Certainly, this is true. Georgia's Republican Secretary of State did reveal at least 1,000 people voted twice in that state's primary and runoff elections. But just because the Secretary of State is Republican, that doesn't mean Republican voters were voting twice. They actually tallied this up, and it's been reported that the majority of these voters that voted twice in these primary elections were in fact Democrats. So they're obviously trying to say that it's the Republicans that are going to try to steal the election in November by voting twice in this kind of illegal voting. But it's actually more Democrats than Republicans, in fact, voted twice in this particular primary, in these primaries recently. Now this idea that Donald Trump has encouraged supporters in North Carolina to vote twice, this is a lie that was in fact debunked very, very well by Kayleigh McEnany in a press conference recently. Let's play what Kayleigh McEnany had to say.
I have it right here. Sure.
Okay, maybe you should read it out for me then.
Okay, so the president said that you should go to your poll, you should vote early, by mail, and then you should go either early voting or day of and try to vote again. So he is asking people to vote by mail and then to go down to the polling place on election day and to vote again if their vote if they can't confirm their vote has been counted.
You're missing a very crucial line from the president's remarks. If it is not tabulated, meaning your mail-in vote, then you will be able to vote in person. If it is not tabulated.
There are at least 5 states in this country that do not count any mail-in votes until election day. So those votes won't be counted until afterwards. so that there's no way to know whether or not their vote is
There's a
good.
very simple answer, and this is how it works. First, a lot of states have what are called electronic poll books. And what this means is that in real time, this is updated. So if your vote is counted, they check the electronic poll book, and you will not be able to vote in person because your vote has been counted. There's a secondary situation. So those who do not have electronic poll books, every single state in the country, you can cast a provisional ballot. And that is a ballot that is there, and if your vote that you have not mailed in is not counted, they will then count the provisional ballot. And that is exactly what the president's referring to. But what Democrats are doing is saying this: we want an entire new system for voting, one subject to fraud. Don't take it from me, take it from Jimmy Carter, who said in 2005, as part of a bipartisan commission, absentee ballots remain the largest source of potential voter fraud. So what Democrats want you to do is say, trust us, but don't verify. Don't verify that your vote's been counted. This president's trying to enfranchise Americans, which is exactly what he's been saying. He wants every American to have a vote because he understands what Jimmy Carter understood and what so many of us understood until the president started putting the focus on mail-in voting, and that was this: that it is subject to fraud. Every vote should count, and every American should verify that their vote is counted by going to their polling
You say
location.
to the executive director.
So you see, Donald Trump wasn't in fact encouraging voters to vote twice randomly. But if you send in an absentee vote, and for whatever reason you believe that your vote is not going through, it's imperative that you go vote in person just to make sure your vote is counted, right? That's kind of the concept there. Let me continue reading this letter from this Political Action Committee. Trump's months-long campaign to undermine the election is working. He fought to defund the USPS, U.S. Postal Service. That's not true. He, in fact, fought to not fund the USPS even more than they already have. They already allotted a lot of money to the USPS. They increased their budget, and then they wanted to increase it even more to facilitate this mass of mail-in voting. And Trump said, no, we shouldn't have massive mail-in voting, and I'm not going to give the U.S. Postal Service more money to do something that will, in fact, make our elections less safe and much more vulnerable to fraud.
They want money for the universal mail-in ballots. And they're not getting it. You know why? Because of them. We want money to go to people. They want money in order to bail out states that have done very poorly. The states that have done poorly, you know them as well as I do. These are run by Democrats, usually radical left Democrats. Again, absentee voting is great. You request, I'm an absentee voter because I requested, I got, and then I sent in my vote. So that works out very well. That's what we've had. But now they want to send in millions and millions of ballots. And you see what's happening. The ballots are lost. There's fraud. There's theft. It's happening all over the place. Now, we're going to do it with this whole vast, big section of the country. It's crazy.
So they say, he's fought to defund the USPS and reduce our mailing system's ability to count every vote. Not true. And he's discouraged voters from casting their ballots by mail, despite the fact he himself voted by mail earlier this year. True. And he has said many times that absentee voting is fine, but everybody doing mail-in voting, not fine. And I agree with him.
Absentee is good. Mail-in, universal, is very, very bad.
They go on. He plans to leave Americans with no option to safely exercise their voting rights. The hell are they talking about? He plans to leave Americans with no option to safely exercise their rights. You literally just said he's trying to discourage people from voting by mail. He is encouraging them to vote in person. Do you think that Trump's going to close down the in-person voting and discourage people from voting by mail so that they have no option to vote? I suppose what they're suggesting is people don't want to vote in person because of coronavirus, so if they can't vote in person because they're afraid of coronavirus and they can't vote by mail, then they have no options. But voting in person should be perfectly safe, should be just as safe as going to the grocery store or any other stuff that we do every day. So, in fact, you do have an option, but some people are irrationally scared, but that's because of the leftist mainstream media. That's not Trump's fault. And they go on, and now Republican voters seem to be, I don't know why I'm doing this voice, but I think it's funny. And now Republican voters seem to be following his latest encouragement to vote twice in the November election, while a growing majority of Democrats say they will be casting their single vote by mail. Yes, of course. It's the Republicans that we have to worry about when it comes to voter fraud. It's Republicans totally. It's not Democrats. There's no history of voter fraud amongst Democrats. I mean, Okay, I talked about this in a previous video, but I'll mention it again. In the New York Post, there was a beautiful article called Confessions of a Voter Fraud, and it was about this guy who admits freely, he's a Democrat operative, admits freely to committing voter fraud in these vote-by-mail ballots. You guys should all read that New York Post article. It's phenomenal. It's called Confessions of a Voter Fraud. They go on. We need to make sure that Democrats turn out in overwhelming numbers to prevent Trump from stealing this election. But with Trump supporters proving they'll follow along with the GOP's voter suppression tactics, don't know what the hell they're talking about, and the election less than 2 months away, we need to know where engaged voters stand on Trump's attempts to undermine our democracy. And then they, of course, ask for money. There's so many lies in this, and they're so flagrant, and they're so ridiculous. I mean, they're saying Trump supporters will follow along with the GOP's voter suppression tactics. Now, they commonly say that requiring a state to, or requiring voters to provide an identification before voting is a form of voter suppression. There is a beautiful video by, I forget his name, Ari something. You guys probably have seen this video. It's an amazing video where he's going around asking these like Berkeley Democrat, kids, do you think black people will have a harder time voting because of an inability to get an ID? And then they all go, yes, yes, black people have a hard time getting ID in America, which is like, the hell are you talking about? And then he goes to Harlem and he asks all these black people, hey, do you have trouble getting ID, getting driver's license? And they're all like, no, we're not idiots. And it's just such a beautiful video because it totally undermines this argument that, oh, black people have such a hard time getting IDs in states. It's voter suppression. You're hurting black people. It's like, okay, maybe in like 1958 or something, or 1962, maybe there were these instances of places in which it was difficult for black people to get ID, and so requiring an ID was a form of voter suppression. It's 2020. Nobody has a hard time getting an ID. Have you ever been to a DMV? It's almost all black people anyway. So if you go into a DMV and you're not able to get an ID from another black person, I doubt that it's voter suppression by white Republicans because of some kind of racist voter suppression tactic. But that is, of course, one of the ridiculous lies of the left. Now, this PAC, Political Action Committee, is also repeating Kamala Harris's fear-mongering anti-vax position. They're trying to tell their constituents, their potential voters, their potential donors, they're basically saying, like, Trump's just trying to put this vaccine out in order to try to win the election. How dare Trump do anything that's good for the American people? How dare Trump try to stop the lockdown by ending the coronavirus pandemic? How dare he do that? Because that's cheating. He should never put a vaccine out. The vaccine is going to be fake somehow. Somehow he's going to convince these doctors to circumvent all these regulations and just put out a vaccine that in fact doesn't work or is in fact harmful because they're all in his back pocket. They want to help him win the election because everybody knows that the medical community and the science community love Republicans so much. So again, they begin this email. Chris, Donald Trump is pushing to release a COVID-19 vaccine before the November election. Good heavens! Oh, sorry, let me read this in my effete SJW voice. Despite opposition from his own top scientists. He doesn't have opposition from his top scientists. What the hell are they talking about? And now, a major vaccine trial has been put on hold after a participant developed symptoms of an unexplained illness, confirming fears of bypassed safety measures. No, they saw that he had an ailment, and then they put the vaccine trial on hold. That is a safety measure. That is exactly how the safety measure thing works, you morons. Okay. Kamala Harris warned Americans not to trust Donald Trump's vaccine promise. She urged them to wait for a credible source, because you can't believe anything that Trump says, that confirms the efficacy and reliability of the vaccine before putting themselves at risk. If you take this vaccine of Donald Trump's, you could die. They didn't write that. That was my own editorializing. But it's basically what they're trying to suggest here, I think. But Trump is willing to risk the health of millions of Americans to give himself an ego boost and to attract voters with a false sense of accomplishment. Yeah, if Donald Trump produces a vaccine to combat coronavirus and end the pandemic, that's a false sense of accomplishment. That's what that is. Give me a... He attacked Harris's warnings as sabotage, brushing off evidence that the vaccine could cause unknown side effects for Americans who use it. Kamala Harris is ready to protect Americans from Donald Trump's blatant disregard for science. Are you ready to fight alongside her as Democrats attempt to take back the White House and the Senate? We're preparing our efforts to get Democrats to the polls this fall, but we need to hear from you. Let us know if you support our vice presidential candidate and send us all your money. Anyway, right, so blatant disregard for science, blah, 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 blah. Basically, how dare Trump interfere with our efforts to lock down the country, destroy the economy, and prolong this pandemic as long as possible. How dare he cure Americans of this awful disease? How dare Donald Trump do good for the country? But anyway, yeah, I thought that was a fascinating insight. Fascinating insight. They're acknowledging voter fraud. They're repeating this anti-vax BS from Kamala Harris. I mean, when it comes down to the sort of like directly communicating with the Democrat voters, you know, emails from political operatives, they are far more extreme than what you're hearing on CNN and MSNBC. And the stuff you're hearing on CNN and MSNBC, that stuff's already insane. That stuff's already false. Stuff's already lies and propaganda. You get down to this, and this is unbelievable. It's actually kind of hard to comprehend exactly how vicious, nasty, and horrible this is, not just to Trump and Republicans, but to the American people. I mean, they're lying to their own constituents blatantly and extreme. I mean, this is extreme stuff here. So anyway, obviously vote Trump 2020. That's it for me. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant, it's just that they know so much that isn't so, because people like this are telling them lies. Good night.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism. And what is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, but total government control and regulation. Well, isn't this the liberal philosophy? The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket.